Hello YouTube! We are on the Real Programming channel. It is about HTML and CSS. My name is Andrei. I greet you. Welcome on my channel. This is our 78th lesson about final chapter, a rather positive negative test drive. And let's go talk about this. Make sure you put in the negative left property value save and reload the page. Doesn't that look ask? And congrats, you just achieved your first CSS specialist effect. Watch out, George Lucas. And then just remember, using fixed positioning to cover up your content is not the most user-friendly thing to do. Can you believe how good this site looks? I mean, look at where it started compared to now. Okay, but we've still got our work cut out for us. I've got big ideas. I want to start a blog and we need to build the bin machine. What's the difference about this? Sharpen your pencil. Time to put all this knowledge about floating and absolute positioning to the test. Exercise to take a look at the web page below. There are 4 elements with an ID. Your job is to correctly match each of these elements with the CSS rules on the right and fill in the correct ID selector for each one. Check out your answer at the end of the chapter. And I will show you an exercise on this channel about this. And fill in the selectors to complete the CSS. There are no dumb questions. The fixed coupon is cool, but kind of annoying. Is there another way we could position it to so it doesn't overlap content? Say at the bottom of the beverages column. Sure, you could position the coupon at the bottom of the beverages column using something called relative positioning. We didn't cover its kind of positioning, but it's similar to absolute except that the element is left in the flow of the page where it would normally be, and then shifted by the amount you specify. You can shift the element using tab, left, bottom or right, just like with absolutely positioned elements. So let's say you wanted the coupon below the drinks in the beverages column. You would move the coupon so it's nested in the drinks div at the bottom and then set the position property to relative. After that, it's up to you to put the coupon precisely where you want it. You could position it 20 pixels below the drinks with tab 20 pixels and hanging out the left side of the page with left minus 90 pixels, just like we did with fixed. So the 4 kinds of position are static, absolute, fixed and relative. That's right, static is what you get up by default if you don't specify any positioning, and it leaves everything to flow as normal into the page. Absolute takes an element completely out of the flow of the page and allows you to position it at an absolute position relative to the closed positioned parent element, which is HTML, unless you specify one yourself. Fixed positions an element at a specific fixed position relative to the browser window, and relative positions an element relative to its containing element by leaving it in the normal flow and then shifting it over by an amount you specify. You can also use these positioning techniques together. For instance, remember how we said the absolutely positioned elements are positioned relative to the closest positioned parent. You could absolutely position a div within another div by positioning the outer div with relative, leaving it in the flow, and then positioning the inner div with absolute low, allowing you to position it relative to the parent div. As you can see, there is a huge variety in the ways you can position elements with CSS positioning. Could you position an element completely off screen if you wanted? Yes. For instance, the coupon image is 283 pixels wide, so if you set the left position to minus 283 pixels, the coupon would disappear. It's still there on the page, it's just not visible in the viewport. Remember, the viewport is the visible area of the page. What if we want to animate elements, like if we wanted to show the coupon seeding into the page from the left? Is that possible with CSS? Actually, it is, and we're glad you asked it. It's beyond the scope of this book to get into CSS animation, but CSS3 introduced basic animation for elements with the transform and transition features, which is existing for us web geeks. It's fairly limited, but you can do some pretty cool things with CSS animation if you want more than what you can do with CSS. You'll have to use JavaScript, and that's a whole other topic. We give you a brief introduction to CSS transform and transitions in the appendix just to whet your appetite. Bullet points. Browsers place elements in a page using flow. Block elements flow from the top down with a line break between elements. By default, each block element takes up the entire width of the browser window. And line elements flow inside the block element from the top left to the bottom right. If more than one line is needed, the browser creates a new line and expands the containing block elements vertically to contain the inline elements. The top and bottom adjacent margins of two block elements in the normal page flow collapse to the size of the larger margin, or the size of one margin if they are the same size. Floated elements are taken out of the normal flow and placed to the left or right. Floated elements sit on top of block elements and don't affect their flow. However, the inline content respects the boundaries of a floated element and flows around it. The clear property is used to specify that unfloated elements can be on the left or right or both, or a block element. A block element with a clear set will move down until it is free of the block element on its side. A floated element must have a specific weight set to value other than auto. A liquid layer is one in which the content of the page expands to fit the page when you expand the browser window. A frozen layout is one in which the weight of the content is fixed, and it doesn't expand or shrink with the browser window. This has the advantage of providing you more control over your design, but at the cost of not using the browser weight as efficiently. A gel layout is one in which the content weight is fixed, but the margins expand and shrink with the browser window. A gel layout usually places the content in the center of the page. This has the same advantages as the frozen layout, but is often more attractive. There are four values. The position property can be set to static, absolutely, fixed, and relative. Static positioning is the default and places an element in the normal flow on the page. Absolute position lets you place elements anywhere in the page. By default, absolutely positioned elements are placed relative to the sides of the page. If an absolutely positioned element is nested within another positioned element, then its position is relative to the containing elements that is positioned. The top properties right, bottom, and left are used. The position elements are for absolute, fixed, and relative positioning. Absolutely positioned elements can be layered on top of one another using that index property. The larger that index value indicates is the higher index tag closer to you on the screen. Fixed position elements are always positioned relative to the browser window and do not move when the page is scrolled. Other content in the page scrolls underneath these elements. Relative positioned elements are first flowed into the page as normal and then offset by the specified amount, leaving empty the space where they would normally sit. With relative position, left, type, right and bottom refer the amount of offset from the element's position in the normal flow. CSS table display allows you to lay out your elements in table-like layout. To create a CSS table display, use a block element for the table, block elements for the rows, and block elements for the cells. Typically, this will be a div element. Table display is a good layout strategy for multi-column layouts where even columns of content are needed. Exercise HTML cross. This has been a turbocharged chapter with lots to learn. Help it all sink in by doing this crossword. All the answers come from the chapter. And next exercise, be the browser. Open your long HTML file and locate all the block elements. Flow each one into the page below. Just concentrate on the block elements listed directly inside the body element. You can also ignore the flow property in your CSS because you still don't know what it does. Here is the solution. Here is your page flow of the block element in long HTML here. Each block element in your long HTML file is flowed from top to bottom with a line break in between. We didn't ask you to, but if you went the extra mile and the element in the Elixir's div is cut flowed. Some of these elements have nested block elements in them, like the UL or the Elixir div and the footer div. Next exercise solution. The divs is flowed to the right, just below the main content, and the remainder of the HTML is floated around it, which is the music recommendation and the footer. Sharpen your pencil. Exercise. It is our code. And next exercise. The new CSS. We added the HTML inside the table row of div. Above the main div, the content comes first, and the first column in the page and the first cell in the table layout. Here is the CO wants the Starbucks page to look with the new column on the left containing the drinks menu. And for last fill the selectors complete on this CSS. You could also just use a hash header slogan. Here is a selector if you want, and HTML cross. Next solution, this is the first column, this is the first and the only row. On each cell we can place a block comment, we can use the existing divs and the Starbucks page in the cells. Notice that in this table we have one row and two columns for a total of 2 cells. And modern HTML 12 chapter HTML5 markup. We'll talk about this in the next lesson. This is our 78th lesson over. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel, please put likes, share with friends, comment, eat bananas, eat fruit, read more books on this topic, and be sure to practice regularly. Drink water for the brains. Bye.